Hello again. It's been a while and I do apologize for not doing a few more videos, but it's really been a busy, exciting and hectic time for the Learnanatomy team. So today what I really want to do is respond to an email that I've just received from Ashley, and Ashley reports that she's taking an exam at the end of the month and she really wants some understanding of the process of how we take food into our body, how that food is used, what the passage of food is from the moment we eat to the moment we excrete, from the moment it leaves our body. So what I'm going to do in this video is take you through the process of taking food in, which is called ingestion, how that food is broken down when we digest, and how the food is eliminated from our body through excretion. So I have some handy little friends to help us, and these are some of the resources that I use on the courses we teach. So remember, check out the Learnanatomy site because we have some interesting and really exciting workshops coming up. I'll also be presenting with my colleague Jane at the MTI conference in Solihull on the 22nd of April. So if you're interested to come and learn about muscle testing or applied case studies in anatomy and soft tissue practice, check out the MTI, that's the Massage Training Institute's website, and that will be a really useful conference to attend. But carrying on now and getting back to our focus for this video. So what happens? Well, let's just take an inside story look at when we eat. So you well know that when you eat, first thing that happens, food enters the mouth. And in that process of taking food in, when we ingest, we start to break it down. So our teeth, as well as the tongue, plays an important role in ensuring that we can eat and take the nutrients from our food. So the food enters the mouth, and we have a number of different types of teeth. So for example, we have sharp canine teeth, which are there for cutting, incisor teeth as well to cut, and then the molars, which are main teeth for chewing. And the term for chewing is called mastication. So in the mouth, a lot of mastication. We masticate in terms of breaking that food down. Enzymes are released through the saliva. We've got a number of salivary glands. And then this muscle over here, which is our tongue, helps to churn and also to taste the food we eat. So you know that the tongue is flooded with taste buds, which gives us an understanding, interprets whether the food we eat is salty, it's sour, it's bitter, or it's sweet. What happens as that food is being churned around and broken down in part, it's converted into a little food ball, which we call a bolus. So bolus is a little ball of food, and if you have young kids and you ask them to open their mouth, or they enjoy opening their mouths whilst they're eating, they will show you exactly what a bolus is. When you have chewed the food enough and that food is now broken down or converted into this food ball, the bolus, it moves to the back of the tongue, back of the throat, which is known as the oro. Remember, the word oral pertains to mouth. The oropharynx, and pharynx means throat, goes to the back of the throat, and the tongue flicks it back, and that's when we swallow. Now the food, the body is really precise about the passage of food and how that follows. So it has a unidirectional flow. In other words, a one-way flow in terms of how that food moves. So this little pipe in front here is called the trachea, and that's the windpipe. So that's where air, when we breathe in, that's the pathway for air. The posterior pipe, the pipe that sits behind the trachea, is the esophagus, and that is the food pipe. So what we have at the entrance to the trachea is a one-way switch called the epiglottis, and the epiglottis closes off the trachea when we swallow so that that bolus can move into the correct tube, and that moves into the posterior tube, the esophagus. And as the food or that bolus moves down the esophagus, remember the esophagus is made up of smooth muscle, which is one muscle type in the body, and it moves through contractile waves, and those waves are called peristaltic waves or peristalsis. And what happens? The circular or smooth muscle contracts, relax, and pushes the food along. So it's that contraction and relaxation which creates the wave cycle to propel the food towards the stomach, and that's called peristaltic waves. So it's contraction, relaxation as the food is propelled or moved towards the superior aspect of our stomach. So now we pick up the journey as the food is moving down, and it moves to the top portion of the stomach. And at that top portion of the stomach, there's a little valve or sphincter. So the proper term is sphincter, which means valve. And because it lies literally under the heart, that is called the cardiac sphincter. And that little valve, once the food reaches it, puts pressure on that valve opens, and now the food can enter the stomach. Now what's important here is that the esophagus does not have a protective coating to protect it from acid, whereas the stomach does have a coating and a lining to protect it from acid. So often we may get some of the stomach content coming back into the esophagus, and that's when you experience something called heartburn. So you get that burning feeling. If that burning is strong enough and severe enough, it could burn a little hole in the wall of the esophagus, and that's when someone may suffer from something called a hiatus hernia, because the cardiac sphincter is also known as the hiatus. Now that food has moved into the stomach, and what you can notice here in the stomach is that the stomach is not smooth. It's actually made up of little ridges called rugae, and they help to churn the food. So what are actually, and that bolus which now enters the stomach has had acid, hydrochloric acid and pepsin and all these other digestive juices secreted into it, and it starts to break it down further. So that bolus is converted from a food ball into a substance called chyme. So I like to think of the stomach as chyme time chewing. Also think of your stomach as a cement mixer, constantly churning, breaking down that food, making sure that we can extract for the next part of the process the key nutrients so that the body has the necessary fuel that it needs. So that's broken down in the stomach. When the stomach is full, it distends. It can move down into the viscera or organs which make up our abdominal part. And this part, which lies just at this point downwards, so this part, imagine the lungs are up here, so just, and the diaphragm would be over there. So from the liver downwards, this part of the gastrointestinal tract is part of what we call the peritoneum, which is in the abdominal part. So remember, the front of the body is divided into a thoracic part and an abdominal part. The food then leaves the stomach, or the chyme leaves the stomach, passes through another little valve or sphincter. This is called the pyloric sphincter, and now the chyme is moving into the first part of the small colon, and that first part is called the duodenum. And it's a C-shaped, it wraps its way around, C-shaped looking tube, also made up of smooth muscle. And what we have at that point, we have bile, which comes from the liver, stored in the gallbladder, secreted into that duodenum to help break down fat. So the bile emulsifies the fat. So if you take some oil in a plastic cup and you add washing up fluid to it and you shake it up, you'll see that that washing up fluid emulsifies that fat and almost makes that fat into a milky type of fluid. That's exactly what the bile does. It helps us to emulsify the fat that we eat in our diet. This organ lying on the side, which wraps its way under the stomach, is called the pancreas. And that plays a very important role. The pancreas is both an endo and an exocrine gland. Remember, endocrine secretes straight into the blood, exocrine through a little duct, and it secretes, as its exocrine role, it secretes the digestive juices into the duodenum. Now the food moves into the next part of the small colon, and as you notice, the small colon is folded, and whenever structure is folded, like the brain or the colon, that is to increase the surface area. And the next part of the small colon is called the jejunum, and it contains little villi or specialized cells, And the role of the small colon is to absorb. So it plays an active role in the absorption of the nutrients from our food. It also has a relatively rich blood supply to it. So the blood supply filters around the small colon and then goes up to the liver, and all the toxins are filtered out in the liver, and the useful nutrients are then returned to the blood that we can use, and those are the nutrients that travel to the cell and help to nourish the body. So that blood flow that comes up into the liver from the small colon is called the hepatic portal system. So the liver plays a really important role to filter out toxins, to emulsify the fat, and helps us to really function in a more effective way. Then the food, or the broken down food, now moves into the last part of the small colon called the ileum, and this is where you need to be careful on your spelling, because ileum also pertains to the hip bone. Ileum for the hip is spelled I-L-I-U-M, where ileum as the last part of the small colon, I-L-E-U-M. Okay? Then the feces, or the fecal matter now, the parts we don't want, all the waste, now passes out of the small colon into the first part of the large colon. And that first part is called the cecum, and that little valve between the ileum and the cecum is called the ileocecal valve. And the inferior portion of the cecum is where we find the vermix appendix, your appendix. Vermix means worm-like. Then we have the first part of the large colon, which is the ascending, that's on the right side, it goes up. Then the transverse coming across. Then we have the descending colon running down into the sigmoid colon, into the rectum and anus. So that's where the fecal matter passes out of our body. So the process really, from when we ingest into the mouth, it's really about breaking down the food, making sure that the body can extract the nutrients, and then have an efficient way of getting rid of waste. So I hope that has been useful for aiding your understanding of the process of eating, digestion, and elimination of waste. Until next time, once again, check out our website, and we'll be putting up a whole host of new videos within the next month. From all of us at the Learnanatomy team, till next time, goodbye.